Jeff, let's talk a little bit about the headline news over the weekend. I want to start right with the biggest story, the one that everybody's talking about. After what a lot of people felt like were two nights of kind of paint by number shows, we ended night one with a surprise and night two with an even bigger surprise. One that was even teased the night before by Triple H, where he said, "Hey, if you enjoyed the night, wait till tomorrow. You ain't seen nothing yet." And boy, was he correct. We're going to talk about it and work backwards, but Brock Lesnar is back in the WWE. This comes after just a few weeks after Daniel Cormier said something into a microphone along the lines of, "Oh, Brock Lesnar is on the TKO banned list." Now, maybe that was planted by WWE Unreal. Maybe he knew. We know Cormier is tight with Lesnar. Or maybe this all just came together late. In the post show last night, we saw Triple H basically lay out that this was John Cena's idea. He said something like, "This is John Cena's wish list. John Cena's. It's him writing the last chapter of his book." And I think people saw a conversation with us where he said we'd have to screw it up pretty badly to ruin his career. But it's not about that for me. It's about John being able to go out the way he wants to go out, to write his chapter. I know what that's like as a performer. I know what that's like for everybody to feel that. And I think for John to be able to do what he wants to do, one of the very first things I said to him is, "Who do you want and how?" And we're working through that. This was a surprise for everyone, but boy, the conversation this morning as I log on to social media, it is shock, but I wouldn't say it's excitement. A lot of people are pissed that Brock Lesnar is back. Andrew Dice Clay, who you and I have mentioned a few times before here on the program, he is, of course, international, so I don't think he saw it until this morning. But he actually pointed out he exposed himself to Terry Runnels. He groped Cornette's wife by the crotch. He broke into Rena Mero's house while she was still married to someone else. And he's named 44 times in a sex trafficking lawsuit. Now, I'm saying all that to say, clearly WWE felt like, well, this is no big deal. He wasn't criminally charged. I don't know what they're thinking, but I know he's back. And I know that there's a lot of people who are not happy about it. Even as we did a post show last night, we were sort of freestyling. Hey, who do you want to see who do you want to see Brock Lesnar wrestle next? I'm in full on wrestling mode thinking, well, he's back. What do they want next for him? I'll admit, I didn't know any of this stuff until Andrew Dice Clay pointed it out. I hadn't heard any of that stuff. Now I knew about him being named in the lawsuit last year, but the other incidents, that was a blind spot for me. I had no idea, but it's all coming out now. Is this going to be a major PR problem for WWE, or are they going to take the UFC? I guess it's the TKO strategy of, hey, we don't care. We're marching on. We're moving forward. It just feels like this is a real about face. Like for years and years, it felt like WWE even tried to be apolitical. But last week we saw Triple H standing shoulder to shoulder with Donald Trump. I don't know that Donald Trump knew he was at his shoulder, but that doesn't matter. What do you make of all this, Jeff? This is hard to wrap my head around.
God, you just oh man!
Well, did you see? I mean, he looked left. He's like, "Oh, he's a great friend of mine," and he's looking all over. And then it's like, he's right there, bud. You could touch him. But anyway,
okay. You know what? And we'll probably get into this. Probably, I had no idea. I knew we were going to talk some SummerSlam, but I didn't know topics. We've got 3 in the hole. We'll leave them unsaid today because we literally have 3 topics that we're going to get to, and all 3 of them, I've read the notes at least 4 times on one and 2 or 3 on each of the others. So we will get to it. But I didn't know where you're going with this. All right. First off, here is, and I'll get to Brock, but I mean, what's a little, I don't know, confusing in a lot of ways. It ain't confusing, but like the business continues to pivot and evolve, and we set records and continuous records. And, you look at, I mean, across the board, WWE, AEW, TNA had a good house, Mexico, we could go on and on. And so who am I to question anything? But the statement that Triple H made about, well, this is what John wanted. Why does that need to be said right now? I'm
fading the heat, brother. Come on, you know what he's doing.
Well, is he really? Because at the end of the day, I'm going back to, okay, fade the heat, but isn't to me, it's funny how we're just segueing, and maybe you did this by design, that at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what Ari thinks. It doesn't matter what Rox think or Nick Khan or Triple H, or I hate to give the bearer bad news. It don't make a damn what the wrestling fan thinks. At least today, it's shareholder value. If Brock is going to move the needle on shareholder value, then everybody who signed up to get a check or get their checks consistently from TKO, they're on board with that as well. So it shouldn't come as a surprise, because that's who that is literally what they are making their business decision on. Brock is going to generate the most revenue for shareholder value. So with that being said, Triple H is already on board for this. He's fully supporting it, creative driven by it. And so why does he say, hey, it's a John decision? Huh? That to me, I'm not sure if that plays well to Ari and Rock and Nick, candidly. And then to the next layer, that the stuff that Ian and others and all the backlash and everything that, oh boy, they're doing this and doing that. And look, we've had all kinds of circumstances in our industry and other forms of entertainment. Hell, in shit, 9-to-5ers. There's always kind of legal ramifications in and out and in and out. At the end of the day, all the backlash, and I know this may sound simple, but like gotta love wrestling, because love it or hate it, as long as they're making comments about it, it's good for business. The worst thing that can happen is people not quit watching. And I just don't think that's going to happen, because Brock appeared. It hasn't for the last 50, 60 years since it's been on television, 70 years being a televised product. This stuff generates ratings as opposed to diminished ratings. And then the presser, Conrad, that was what.
Let me give you some context on that. Dave Meltzer reported last night after SummerSlam, 4 weeks ago, WWE legal cleared him, talking about Brock Lesnar. And he speculated on the reasons for the clearance, and he's suggesting that WWE's legal team is either confident that the Janelle Grant lawsuit will go to arbitration, or that Lesnar's not going to be in any sort of trouble. And he also says, I can tell you also factually that the reason they didn't do the press conferences was because of this angle. And that's kind of what I wanted to talk about here is.
No, Dave said factually, as opposed to I'm going to lie to you.
Let's set that aside for a minute, Bruce. What I'm trying to get at is Raj Giri has been waving the flag online, and he owned a huge wrestling website for years and years that all of our listeners are familiar with, Wrestling Inc. He sold it a few years back, and I like Raj. He is a competent businessman. He's a nice guy. I could have lunch and beers with Raj any day. I really think a lot of Raj, but he pointed out, hey, Brock has not been criminally charged. This is a civil lawsuit. There's not any sort of criminal circumstance here. Now, that may be technically true, and that's probably technically why he was cleared. But what I'm saying is the court of public opinion. Like, it does feel like for so long, the WWE was apolitical, and they would say things like get out the vote, but not really say, hey, vote this way or that way, because they didn't want to split their audience in half.
Yeah.
But it feels like this is a bit of an about face now, because just last week we saw Triple H shoulder to shoulder with Donald Trump, which there's no doubt he's a polarizing figure, perhaps the most polarizing figure in the entire world. So if you say, hey, I'm on Team Trump, you automatically alienate at least half of your audience, perhaps. But now when you see this piece come out, like, they've worked so hard to overcome the Vince stuff. Like, Meltzer was pretty clear in saying WWE Unreal, which we're going to talk about today, I'm sure, is a vehicle to remind everybody that he being Triple H is sort of the Dana White of the UFC, and the wrestlers are almost interchangeable. This is the guy who's really making it happen. Now, you and I had said for a while, he's positioning himself that way to remind everybody he's the new Vince McMahon. Vince is out, Triple H is here, it's a new regime. And for so long, it felt like he was almost catering to all the things that you didn't like about Vince. Triple H is going to go the other way. And I feel like that's why WWE enjoyed such resurgence in the last few years, But it does feel like now maybe the worm is turning a little bit. Fans are complaining about the price of tickets. Fans are complaining about his association with Donald Trump. And now fans are complaining about Brock Lesnar coming back saying, hey, you're turning a blind eye to some really terrible things. And they feel like, hey, that's the sort of thing that Vince McMahon would do. And they would cite other terrible examples that we don't have to rattle off, but everybody's got a list of reasons why, for whatever reason, they don't like Vince McMahon. And it felt like Triple H was going the other way. I don't really know how to make heads or tails of this. It does feel very Dana White in that Dana White has been closely aligned with Donald Trump for a long time and taking the attitude of, hey, if you don't like it, don't effing watch. And I'm like, we're trying to deliver shareholder value. I don't know. How can we serve both masters? It feels weird, especially with the internet wrestling community. And I know some people are going to argue they're the vocal minority. But man, my timeline this morning is just flooded with anti-Brock Lesnar stuff. I foolishly asked, who would you like to see Brock Lesnar face in his return? And I'm getting people saying death, the U.S. court system. I mean, all kind of like, whoa, I was thinking Gunther. My bad. Where are you at on all this, Jeff?
Well, first off, I would love at some point, and then, maybe not, but like Vince being, what did you call it? Non-political, apolitical, like right down the middle. Okay. Like he's definitely not the first promoter. My grandmother, again, don't discuss wrestling, religion, or politics. That was ingrained in my brain over and over and over. But when you would ask her a private conversation, she firmly believed, and I'm going to say I might have had 3, 4, like real in-depth political conversation with Dad, other than a passing, he could, I mean, he took my grandmother's mindset as well. So she gave it to him too, but she ingrained in me is, she always truly believed in vote for the person as far as political, really get to know the issue. The only thing you really can and should do is vote. Other than that, you've got to do, Jeff, take care of Jeff. And Teeny used to say, Teeny takes care of Teeny, and Teeny takes care of her family, and Teeny takes care of her business. Like that was like in her brain in so much. The thing that, Conrad, I started asking, this is interesting in that, we'll call it the TKO, acquisition merger, and you had UFC and WWE. Now, I'm guessing that the UFC fan base is much more male. Boy, I'd love to have statistics, and I'm sure people out there, much more male. They may lean much more to the right than your typical fan base. I'm saying football, basketball, baseball, soccer, whatever.
75%, Jeff. According to Vox, a further breakdown reveals 88% of these male fans are within the 18 to 44 range, but 25% of the overall audience is female, 75% is male, and 88% of those men are between 18 and 44.
Okay.
According to Vox.
Does it give WWE?
That's all I got.
Okay. So, was that WWE or UFC?
UFC. I thought you said UFC.
I did UFC. So what I'm saying is UFC may have the luxury or the ability, or maybe it's a strategic move that Dana caters to those males 18 to 44, knowing that they've done the research and they can afford, not just afford, it boosts their business. It creates revenue to lean that far to the right. Wrestling, I have always believed, who do we appeal to? The masses. Yep. Males, females, 3 generations. I've had these conversations with baseball folks, and the light bulb goes off to some lifer baseball guys. He goes, I really never looked at wrestling that way. I said, yes, there is so many stories. Yeah, man, how did I get started watching wrestling? Karen is another perfect example. Her parents did not, her dad was in the hospital business. How did she start wrestling? Saturday nights, Saturdays with her grandfather. So it's a 3-generation deal. So our demo's bigger, and I get the buying audience and all that. But I just believe MMA audience and professional wrestling audience are not any, you shouldn't say, they're just very, very different. And so it does shock me in so many ways that they've leaned so far to the right. And it would shock me equally if they started to lean so far to the left, either side. Get out of that, man. That's not good for revenue. I personally believe you're splitting your audience, and you've said this a bunch, and you always say it much more eloquent and articulate it much more meaningful. But Conrad, I just don't see how it helps the shareholder value at all. That's the confusing part.
Yeah, I can't make heads or tails of it. And I'll admit, I watched last night as a wrestling fan, and I just foolishly assumed he wouldn't be here unless he'd been cleared. And I guess he was cleared by WWE legal, but the lawsuit still rolls on. To Raj's point, he hasn't been criminally charged. But I think, we said it last week, when we were talking about the passing of Hulk Hogan.
Yep.
Some people were more concerned about the optics of doing the right thing rather than actually doing the right thing. And I don't think it's necessarily fair to cancel a guy's career because of what some other guy's text said. Like, we don't know what Brock did or didn't do, but if we're trying to rally support and run a business, it does feel like these are the type of controversies we steer clear of at all costs.
Well, hold on. Okay, that's kind of where the leaning left and right is kind of truly, in a ways, and I'm not saying it's 100%, but it has the ability to kind of split the audience. Now, drill it down onto Brock. Do we believe that, let me think how to say, the anti-Brock folks are going to say, hell no, I'll never watch WWE programming again in my life. They brought Brock out. I'll never watch it again. Like, have they truly lost a fan?
Well, that's an interesting question. Dave Meltzer was asked last night, do you think this will affect sponsors? And Meltzer said no. So it might not actually affect business. So maybe that's why WWE made the decision to go forward. They don't care about being popular. They care about doing what's legal and makes the most money, which makes them a business owner.
So that's where I think we're talking about truly two different set of circumstances, in that alienating the audience. And we all know religion and politics, it just cuts so much deeper. It's a completely different, it's like for moral fiber. It's everything that goes with it. So a political stance versus, I'll call it a single talent stance. I just think we're talking two separate things. And
I'm not talking about comparing whether either of those are right or wrong. I'm talking about how you may be eroding consumer confidence in your product.
Yes. Yeah. And I think the political thing has the ability to erode. Not saying it does, but it certainly has the ability to erode consumer confidence. But the Brock thing, I don't know.
Is your 2 cents that Vince McMahon, because we've all heard he's got a new company formed. We've heard from Eric Bischoff that I guess he heard through the grapevine that he's secured a studio in Santa Monica. We've also heard that he set up offices in Connecticut. We know there's a bunch of people who are working with him. We know he set up a few different corporations, including a holding company. So we know that he's getting ready. We know the name of the company. So we know he's going to do something, but nothing's been announced. And part of me was like, yeah, he's going to lay low until all of this legal stuff has a button on it. So I kind of assumed that's what was going to happen with Brock. Would you have done this last night? Would you have brought Brock back? Or do you think, and if you put your old school promoter hat on, it's cart before the horse, and we'd rather measure twice and cut once and let this get behind us and then figure it out? Now, I realize that the challenge here, the wrinkle is we got a finite amount of time with John Cena. So we might be sacrificing something creatively, but in the scheme of things, is that really that big a deal? What say you?
Connie, at probably 7:03 a.m., I was specifically asked that from Karen. She's like, what do you think? Would you have done that? And I said, here's what I am absolutely certain of. I've never had a conversation with the plaintiff or the defendant, none of their attorneys. I have zero. All I know is kind of what I've read or the online discourse. And I just know that's not anywhere. Shit, Conrad, we've both either been in or around legal circumstances that's where the real reality is. Hey, what is What's the judge said? What's the attorney said? What's the next steps? I just Karen, I don't have anywhere close to the amount. I just have the very top line. If I'm sitting back as a wrestling fan and watch Cena tear the house down and the babyface pop that he came out, and I love the shift and the Cody and how good that was for him and to get that win and blah, 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 all that kind of stuff. You talk about over delivering as a character, not as a human, personal, whatever it may be. Shit, for business, and this is where it gets gray area. But I mean, when you saw him appear, it was okay. Here's what's coming next 3, 4, 5 months in Cena world. And from a creative process perspective, isn't that what you're wanting to do? As Dutch Mantel used to say, give them the finish, close this chapter, and then preview the next one. It's a recipe for financial success.
SaveWithConrad.com.
My name is Sergio. I'm from Lancaster in California. The motivation behind just following through with this refinance was I have a baby on the way. So just wanted to get everything in order. In the past couple of years, just afraid to pull the trigger, but then it just seemed like the right time to do it. I went to multiple banks, not only the mortgage I had, but then I went to you, and then I also went to several others. And it just seemed like your team, they were just completely honest and outright. Also, all the information was just laid out for me right there and then, answering all my questions in a timely, efficient manner. Diane was just so helpful and above and beyond accessible with both texting and emails and just any information that they needed. She would explain to me what exactly they wanted me to send, and then if there were any issues, she was able to just resolve them pretty quickly, versus other companies that sometimes it would take a couple of days to get some information. We were looking to pay down some debt, also looking into making some improvements to the home, also build up our backyard, do everything, especially for our daughter coming. By doing this cash out, it's a good amount that we're saving, between $1,000 and $1,500 a month, I would say. It helped out tremendously as well. My name's Sergio. I'm from Lancaster, California, and I saved over $1,500 a month with SaveWithConrad.com.
NMLS number 2129, Equal Housing Lender. SaveWithConrad.com.